Good morning. This is Axel Merk, President Chief Investment Officer of Merck Investments. It is Wednesday morning. S&P futures have dipped negative, currently down -3.25. The 10-year is up 4 ticks. The gold is at, and the spot market is down 175, so kind of flattish at 1724. Back to the bonds, the 30 years up 12 ticks. The 3-month T-bill is at 15 basis points, 3-month LIBOR is at 30 basis points. The effective Fed funds rate has crept up to 8 basis points. Now, global markets are kind of up a bit. Euro Stoxx 50 is up 76 basis points. The FTSE is up 42 basis points. Nikkei was down 0.5%, and Hong Kong was up 0.5%. China was up a tad, and Australia was up 80 basis points. West Texas is crude is at 37.79. That's down 59 cents or 1.5%. And Brent is at $40.69. The VIX index is currently at 33.68, and the VIX curve continues to be slightly inverted, meaning that people are more afraid of the present than the future. And if I look at the currency space, it's a kind of a mixed bag. The strongest currency is the Swiss franc, significantly outperforming the euro because the Swiss franc is the best performing currency. That's 11 basis points up. The euro is the worst performing currency in the G10, and that's down 38 basis points. A narrow range, but still noteworthy. Usually the Swiss franc and euro trade kind of in tandem. Next to the Swiss franc is the Norwegian dollar and the Australian dollar. And then the yen is in the middle of the pack. It's a very odd environment. It's not risk on, risk off. It's kind of all mushed here in the middle a little bit. If I look at my emerging markets, one of the weaker places, the Korean won is down 57 basis points, and the South African rand is up 50 basis points. So nothing that makes all that much sense. But what else is new in the market? Chair Powell of the Fed is going to talk. I believe it's at the noon Eastern time. And then a few things. Obviously, COVID cases are rising. The news talks about Florida and Texas. Arizona is actually the one that I'm most concerned about. The question is how this is going to play out in the medium term. Obviously, if I look just in California, California is really a collection of very different types of people. If you go to a place like the Bay Area, well, people wearing the masks. If you go to Whole Foods, yes, you wear your mask, lining up and so forth. Now, the very point of going to Whole Foods, I presume, is that you show how much you care about everything. And since I mentioned a company that is, even though it's owned by somebody else these days, let me just put in my disclosure here for the day, not an investment recommendation, obviously. But the point I was trying to make, if you go inland, outside of the cities, people kind of make a point of not wearing a mask. Now, it's not a big issue to the extent that outside of the cities, the risk of getting COVID is lower because there are fewer cases there. The question I have is a place like Texas, where culturally people are less inclined to wear masks, and they do have an uptick. Let's see whether the culture changes if indeed the outbreak is increasing. My best guess is that yes, it will, but we'll find out. And Arizona has an older population, so that's a concern. Let's see how they'll deal with it. Now, in other places around the world, in China, obviously they were climbing down on a local outbreak in Beijing. In Germany, at least in Bavaria, the cabinet is now meeting in person again, and they've indicated they'll pretty much relax everything as long as you can do contact tracing. Now, the Germans also just introduced a contact tracing app. The different variants of these, this one appears to be built on an SAP database, meaning there is a centralized database. It was delayed several weeks because of the privacy concerns, and apparently they have been addressed, and 6 or 7 million people downloaded that within the first few days. And so that appears to be embraced. And sticking with Germany for a second, there had been an uptick, significant uptick in open table reservations, and as if people were coming back to restaurants, but it appears to be that this is kind of the requirement to allow the contact tracing. It's one way of filling the requirement. Now, anecdotally, one hears that if you do write the address in by hand, that people write in the wrong address because they don't want to give the address. In the US, you got I've got one contact tracing app I found that does not it doesn't use a central database. It's all based just on Bluetooth and interaction and so forth. So I think the contact tracing part of it, I don't know whether we can delegate it to an app, but it's one tool in the toolbox. And the point is that back to kind of what I said, the cabinet is meeting. They have decided that if you have larger meetings, even that's okay or going to be okay soon, as long as you can trace people, right? But something like Carnival, they don't quite know yet how that will be handled. Italy is toying with the idea of lowering the VAT for several years. Now, Germany announced that and passed it, I believe, not long ago for the second half of this year. It's one thing to do this on a temporary basis. If you do it for several years, Italy is kind of saying we are on the Italian path because Japan, Italy is saying we are on the Japanese path. Japan has had tremendous difficulty getting its VAT higher. Whenever I've tried it, then consumption has broken down, and so several times they have to backpedal on that. Um, and so let's see what the Italians will do. Now, at the same time, sticking with Europe here for a second, the European stimulus is held up. Apparently, the family isn't quite as happy anymore about providing that stimulus, and so we'll see whether that comes about. In the U.S., some housing starts numbers are worse than expected. It's not terribly surprising. Some economic numbers are better than expected. If you have access to the PPP number, unemployment checks, you go out and spend. But something like housing, you have to go through government bureaucracies, and I'm not surprised that some of the bottlenecks are greater than usual. So those numbers are worse than expected. Talking about unemployment numbers, apparently, next time we get the non-farm payroll report, we might get a different methodology. They've pretty much said that the methodology they're using in the current environment doesn't really give you the right answers, isn't really effective. I don't know yet whether that is the case, but that of course sets us up for yet another major miss as far as expectations. And you may say, hey, you don't care about the expectations of the economists, or you might want to care because the markets often react to how things are relative to the so-called expectations. And if they do amend those ways of doing it, first of all, everybody was shell-shocked that the economy is so much better than expected, and so there's going to be a bias of showing better results. And then the data crunchers are going to provide worse results because they reclassify things differently. And so good luck with that. I think brace your seatbelt here for the next non-farm payroll report that's coming out. If that's already when numbers will be implemented. Other than that, again, Paul speaking today, we are releasing our research report here in just a bit, hopefully. And so if you don't follow research reports, merkinvestments.com/research is where you can get those, where we have a whole set of charts that we will make available. And there's a premium report as well. So do not forget to make a pitch about that. Anyways, have a great day and talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.